Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Perspective. We're here with Shetland's Louise Say. Shetland is a TV show on BBC, and Louise is producer. So welcome, Louise.
Thanks, Randy. Nice to be here.
So we're here to talk about, Shetland, why don't you tell us a little bit about Shetland and where it's shot? Because that's important and I think a jumping off point for the rest of the conversation.
Sure. Well, the Shetland Islands are Britain's most northerly outpost. It's probably nearer Norway than it is London. It really is in the middle of nowhere. It's quite a logistical challenge for us to shoot up there, and we can probably go into more detail about that later. But it's quite something. It's a very barren landscape. There are no trees. The weather is pretty extreme at times, so we've got all that to cope with. But it's quite an extraordinary place, and I think, all the cast and crew enjoy filming up there. It's really special.
Well, it's pretty gorgeous, but I imagine that the weather plays a very big role in your production. Season 6 is your first season on the show. Can you talk about coming on to a pretty established and popular show in season 6?
I'm a big fan of Shetland. I'm a massive fan myself. It's a national treasure of a show, really. So when my agent called me up and said, "Oh, they're looking for producers," I immediately threw my hat in the ring, because I thought, well, this is great. I mean, I live in Scotland. I'm originally from Wales, but I live in Glasgow. I love the show. It's clever writing. And I just wanted to kind of really come on board and not reinvent the wheel because it didn't need that. I just wanted a slight, we started to call it a dial turn, myself and the directors and DOPs on the show. So basically, we wanted to take these amazing scripts, and they are brilliant, and just make them a little bit more epic, really push the cinematography on them, and also make them just a little bit more thrilling, whether that be with use of camera, position of camera, music, performance always. And I hope that we achieve that.
Well, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is COVID. And I believe that the production was delayed a bit. And if you could just talk about some of the protocols that you had to set up and how you made this work.
Making television under COVID is a massive challenge for everyone. I initially came on board on Shetland in around July 2019, so pre-pandemic. And, little did I know, like the rest of us, what was around the corner. We were in prep, we had directors on board, DOPs, all the crew. We were just finishing our tech recce in Shetland when we learned there were more COVID cases in Shetland than in Glasgow, and there'd been an outbreak actually on the islands. And as we were leaving, it was almost like the shops and the hotels were closing behind us. And this was the 13th of March, 2020. And just within a few days, we had to shut production down. It's one of the saddest days in my career, I think, breaking the news to the crew that we had to put production on hold. So while we mothballed production, myself and my line producer, Pam Roberts, we got together and we worked very closely with ITV to produce a set of protocols. And we also brought in specialists. We developed our own COVID department to basically oversee all the COVID of production, a COVID manager, COVID supervisor on the floor. But at the heart of it was this massive document, which was the protocols based on industry advice. The BFI were involved, and we produced our own set of protocols specific for Shetland because our challenges are specific for working in at such a remote place. Our COVID protocols included zoning. So, for instance, whenever we were on set with actors not wearing masks, we called that Zone 1. So all our crew in Zone 1 and actors were all tested, PCR tested twice a week. On top of that, because we filmed both in Glasgow studio and in Shetland, when we went to Shetland, we were very careful not to take COVID to Shetland. So we tested everybody there, and that was a protocol quite specific to us. We wanted to make sure that the islands and the islanders were kept safe, that we felt safe, that we weren't taking COVID to them. And we went into production eventually a year to the day late. So the protocols were really important to us, including testing, social distancing, hand sanitizing, testing everybody before we went to Shetland. And really in that first period when we were filming up there back in April this year, when we were still pretty much in full lockdown, we went to work, we were all, mindful of social distancing, mask wearing. You just can't imagine that whole extra layer on already a challenging production. But, with the support of our great health and safety team, our COVID team, we managed it and we kept production safe. And that was crucial.
Let's get back to the weather and how it affects the shoot. How do you shoot in a climate that is pretty inhospitable?
We rely on really good weather forecasting and on local knowledge. Folks, we have a really good Shetland location manager who knows the island and knows when storm's coming. And it's more than just a weather forecast, it's local knowledge and local intuition. We have worked in Arctic blasts, winds of 70 miles an hour. We had to stop work. We didn't even start block 2 shoot. We started 2 days late because of the Har. The Har is this thick, dense fog that rolls off the North Sea and across the island and brings pretty much everything to a standstill. And storm force winds, winds of 70 miles an hour plus. Now, we have filmed in those conditions. But we always take our health and safety really seriously. And we have stopped filming when it's got too much. We've gone, right, it's dangerous, we stop. We're very, very careful about keeping everybody safe. Equally, when it is within the margins of safety, this weather adds to the show. It looks dramatic, it looks fabulous in camera. And we're aware of that as well. Although, continuity-wise, it can be a bit of a nightmare because one shot could be snowy and the next shot can be glorious sunshine. But that Shetland, you get 4 seasons, not just in a day, but in an hour.
So I imagine that post-production is also very important on a show like this, because with the winds and the sound, the production sound, it must all be very challenging. So can you talk about who provides the post-production? I know that you're involved to the very end. Just a little bit about, the audio post, the editing, the color, anything that you could provide.
Well, we use a company called Blazing Griffin in Glasgow for our post-production. So our post-production supervisor is part of Blazing Griffin. And we do all our online, our grade there, and they oversee, obviously, our mixes as well, which are done at Savalis, which is a facility nearby. Now, Blazing Griffin and Savalis have worked with Shetland for a number of years. They know the show. And our post-production team that work on the show have done it before. So it's a well-oiled machine, really. And they're very much aware of the challenges of the show in terms of sound, wind buffeting and so on, and stripping that out. We have a great sound recordist, but ultimately, there is a limit to how clean you can keep your sound. Our editors have been based at home with their own equipment at home rather than in the post-production facility. So we have been sending our offline media to editors via a Signiant media shuttle. So they have all the media sent to them. And our director works alongside our editor, almost in real time, but in their own homes using Evercast. And we found that system works really well. I know initially both my directors, in fact, me as well, I was like, well, you won't get that organic feel in the edit because you're not actually, physically in the space. And that sometimes is important with the nuance of a scene. But actually, both directors really felt that it was seamless almost, and really enjoyed the experience. So, and it certainly didn't have any impact on the fine cuts and the final product. I think, the final shows are terrific. So, we're very proud that fact that you can't really tell that the show's made in COVID, both in terms of the way it's shot and in the post-production process.
Do you think that this will continue, the editing remotely? I mean, if it worked so well, do you see some of the protocols that have been put in place because of COVID remaining?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Do you know, I hope not, because I like, human contact and creativity being in that space, I'm contradicting what I just said, I know, but I would hate to think that we're all going to be separate forever. I just would love us all to kind of come together to view the fine mix together in an amazing, sound studio, to be in one another's space for viewings as well. When we all kind of dial into viewings, we all zoom in. So with our commissioning editor and our exec producers, our editor, director, and myself, we're all there in the same space, but we're zooming in. I don't know. It's about being a human, isn't it? Being in a collaborative and creative space, and that means in the same physical space. But for the time being, it's just as good. And of course, if it helps reduce our carbon footprint, then so be it.
Louise, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been fantastic. Looking forward to seeing the rest of the show. And you guys are in production right now on season 7, correct?
We are. We're nearly there. We've got about 3 weeks filming to go. So yeah, it's going really well. So hopefully all our fans won't have to wait too long to find out what happens.